the suspicious circumstances which invest him will be found to tally much better with my hypothesis of romantic busybodyism than with the reasoner's suggestion of guilt. Once adopting the more charitable interpretation, we shall find no difficulty in comprehending the rose in the keyhole, the Marie upon the slate, the elbowing the male relatives out of the way, the aversion to permitting them to see the body, the caution given to Madame B. That she must hold no conversation with the gendarme until his Beauvais' return, and lastly his apparent determination that nobody should have anything to do with the proceedings except himself. It seems to me unquestionable that Beauvais was a suitor to Marie's, that she coquetted with him, and that he was now ambitious of being thought to enjoy her fullest intimacy and confidence. I shall say nothing more upon this point, and as the evidence fully rebutes the assertion of Le Toilet, touching the matter of apathy upon the part of the mother and the other relatives, an apathy inconsistent with the supposition of their believing the corpse to be that of the perfumery girl, we shall not proceed as if the question of identity were settled to our perfect satisfaction. And what, I here demanded, do you think of the opinions of Le Commerciel? That in spirit they are far more worthy of attention than any which have been promulgated upon the subject. The deductions from the premises are philosophical and acute, but the premises, in two instances at least, are founded in imperfect observation. Le Commerciel wishes to intimate that Marie was seized by some gang of low ruffians not far from her mother's door. It is impossible, it urges, that a person so well known to thousands as this young woman was should have passed 3 blocks without someone having seen her. This is the idea of a man long resident in Paris, a public man, and one whose walks to and fro in the city have been mostly limited to the vicinity of the public offices. He is aware that he seldom passes so far as a dozen blocks from his own bureau without being recognized and accosted. And knowing the extent of his personal acquaintance with others and others with him, he compares his notoriety with that of the perfumery girl, with no great difference between them, and reaches at once the conclusion that in her walks will be equally reliable to recognition with himself in his. This can only be the case with her walks of the same unvarying methodical character and within the same species of limited region as are his own. He passes to and fro at regular intervals within a confined periphery, abounding in individuals who are led to observation of his person through interest in the kindred nature of his occupation with their own. But the walks of Marie may in general be supposed discursive. In this particular instance, it will be understood as most probable that she proceeded upon a route of more than average diversity from her accustomed ones. The parallel which we imagine to have existed in the mind of Le Commerciel would only have be sustained in the event of the 2 individuals traversing the whole city. In this case, granting the personal acquaintances to be equal, the chances would also be equal that an equal number of personal rencontres would be made. For my own part, I should hold it not only as possible, but also as far from more than probable that Marie might have proceeded at any given period by any one of the many routes between her own residence and that of her aunt, without meeting a single individual whom she knew, or by whom she was known. In viewing this question in its full and proper light, we must hold steadily in mind the great disproportion between the personal acquaintances of even the most noted individual in Paris and the entire population of Paris itself. But whatever force there may be still appear to be in the suggestion of Lake Commercial will be much diminished when we take into consideration the hour at which the girl went abroad. It was when the streets were full of people, says Lake Commercial, that she went out. But not so. It was 9 o'clock in the morning. Now, 9 o'clock in the morning in the week, every morning, with the exception of Sunday, the streets of the city are, it is true, thronged with people. And on Sunday, the populace are chiefly within doors preparing for church. No observing person can have failed to notice the peculiarly deserted air of the town from about 8 until 10 in the morning of every Sabbath. Between 10 and 11, the streets are thronged, but not at so early a period as that is designated. There is another point at which there seems a deficiency of observation on the part of Lake Commercial. A piece, it says, of one of the unfortunate girl's petticoats, 2 feet long and 1 foot wide, was torn out and tied around under her chin and around the back of her head, probably to prevent screams. This was done by fellows who had no pocket handkerchiefs. Whether this idea is or is not well founded, we will endeavor to see hereafter. But by fellows who have no handkerchiefs, the editor intends the lowest class of ruffians. These, however, are the very description of people who will always be found to have handkerchiefs, even when destitute of shirts. You must have had occasion to observe how absolutely indispensable of late years to the thorough blackguard has become the pocket handkerchief. And are we to think, I asked, of the article in Le Soleil, that it is a vast pity and its inditer was not born a parrot, in which case he would have been the most illustrious parrot of his race. He has merely repeated the individual items of the already published opinion, collecting them with a laudable industry from this paper and from that. The things had all evidently been there, he says, at least 3 or 4 weeks, and there can be no doubt that the spot of this appalling outrage has been discovered. The facts here reinstated by Le Soleil are very far indeed from removing my own doubts upon the subject, and we will examine them more particularly hereafter in connection with another division of the theme. At present, we must occupy ourselves with other investigations. You cannot fail to have remarked the extreme laxity of the examination of the corpse. To be sure, the question of identity was already readily determined, or should have been. But there were other points to be ascertained. Had the body been in any respect despoiled? Had the deceased any articles of jewelry upon her person? Upon leaving home? If so, had she anyone found? These are important questions utterly untouched by the evidence, and there are others of equal moment, which have met with no attention. We must endeavor to satisfy ourselves by personal inquiry. The case of St. Eustache must be re-examined. I have no suspicion of his person, but let us proceed methodically. We will ascertain beyond a doubt the validity of the affidavits in regard to his whereabouts on the Sunday. Affidavits of this character are readily made matter of mystification. Should there be nothing wrong here, however, we will dismiss St. Eustache from our investigations. His suicide, however corroborative of suspicion, were there found to be deceit in the affidavits, is without such deceit in no respect an unaccountable circumstance, or one which need cause us to deflect from the line of ordinary analysis. In that which I now propose, we will discard the interior points of this tragedy and concentrate our attention upon its outskirts. Not the least usual in error in investigations such as this is the limiting of inquiry to the immediate with total regard of the collateral or circumstantial events. It is the malpractice of the courts to confine evidence and discussion to the bounds of apparent relevancy. Yet experience has shown, and a true philosophy will always show, that a vast, perhaps the larger portion of truth arises from the seemingly irrelevant. It is through the spirit of this principle, if not precisely through its letter, that modern science has resolved to calculate upon the unforeseen. So perhaps you do not comprehend me. The history of human knowledge is so uninterruptedly shown that to collateral or incidental or accidental events, we are indebted for the most numerous and most valuable discoveries. That it has at length become necessary, in perspective view of improvement, to make not only large, but the largest allowances for inventions that shall arise by chance, and quite out of the range of ordinary expectation. It is no longer philosophical to base upon what has been a vision of what is to be. Accident is admitted as a portion of the substructure. We make chance a matter of absolute calculation. We subject the unlooked for the unimagined to the mathematical formulae of the schools. I repeat that it is no more fact than that the larger portion of all truth has sprung from the collateral, and it is but in accordance with the spirit of the principle involved in this fact that I would divert inquiry, in the present case, from the trodden and hitherto unfruitful ground of the event itself to the contemporary circumstances which surround it. While you ascertain the validity of the affidavits, I will examine the newspapers more generally than you have as yet done. So far we have only recontoured the fugitive investigation, but it will be strange indeed if a comprehensive survey, such as I propose, of the public prints will not afford us some minute points which shall establish a direction for inquiry. In pursuance of Dupont's suggestion, I made scrupulous examination of the affair of the affidavits. The result was a firm conviction of their validity and of the consequent innocence of St. Eustache. In the meantime, my friend occupied himself with what seemed to be a minuteness altogether objectless in the scrutiny of the various newspaper files. At the end of the week, he placed before me the following extracts. About 3.5 years ago, a disturbance very similar to the present was caused by the disappearance of this very same Marie Roget from the Parfumerie of Monsieur Leblanc in the Palais Royal. At the end of the week, however, she reappeared at her customary comptoir, as well as ever, with the exception of a slight paleness not altogether usual. It was given out by Monsieur Leblanc and her mother that she had been merely on a visit to some friend in the country, and the affair was speedily hushed up. We presume that the present absence is a freak of the same nature, and that at the expiration of a week, perhaps a month, we shall have her among us again. Evening paper, Monday, June 23rd.